representatives of different countries from Africa, and I know that we are in very close cooperation with ETF colleagues who are working very closely with countries from Africa, and it's good that you have joined us today to find out some information on key developments in the European countries, but it's great to exchange info, and that's the essence of these online events, and it's good that we have this chance through this kind of events, although we have missed a bit the close contact of physical events, but still we should take advantage of what we have in our hands. We are close to 10 o'clock Central European time, and in a while our event will start. Great. We are almost 150 in the webinar, more than 150 now. Good to see everybody representing so many different European countries and beyond. Kalimera Kari, good to see you. Colleague from London. Hi Ivan from Romania. So many different people from different countries. Great that we have the chance to be all of us together today, exchange some key findings on national qualification frameworks across Europe. I see we are almost there. I would like now to give the floor to Irina. Good morning, Irina.
Good morning, Heracles. Good morning, everyone. Let's wait for 30 more seconds, then we are perfectly on time to start the scheduled.
Of course.
Okay, I think now we are there. It's 10 o'clock Central European time, so let's formally start the meeting. So welcome everyone. My name is Irene Mandl. I have the pleasure of welcoming you to the Cedefop webinar on National Qualification Networks. It's great that we have so many participants from all over Europe and beyond. So we've also seen there are colleagues from Africa and other parts of the world. So great that it has so much interest. As you know, Cedefop is a formal agency of the European Union. We are celebrating this year 50 years of experience in the field of vocational education and training, skills development, learning, qualifications, and the like. And we are doing this webinar series to inform stakeholders, as said, in Europe and beyond. Today's seminar is about national qualification networks frameworks, as you're all well aware. And what we want to discuss today is how countries make best use of national qualification frameworks, what the level of awareness among different types of stakeholders is, what the role of NQFs in making qualifications more visible, more understandable is, and last but not least, as also the title of this webinar says, what the role of NQFs in the Union of Skills is. So before we go into content, let me share with you a bit the housekeeping rules. I'm well aware after all these years of online meetings, you're well aware of them, but nevertheless doesn't do harm to repeat. So just as an information, as a participant, your microphones and your cameras will be disabled. But if you want to get in contact, please use the chat. So you can type messages there. We will take up one or the other comment, and we will also answer questions or comments directly in the chat. Also, for your information, the meeting will be recorded, and the recording will be shared after the meeting in Cedefop's channels. And if you have any technical questions or issues, if something is not working properly for you, please also let us know through the chat. Now, let me give you a brief overview of the agenda of today's webinar. You have seen that it was shared on Cedefop's webpage in advance of the meeting. So we start with two opening remarks, then we have a keynote speech from Cedefop colleagues, and then we finalize the webinar with a panel discussion with a variety of distinguished speakers. We would also invite you in various of the sessions to come in. I said not only in the chat, but there also will be a Slido poll. So be prepared, take your mobile phone so that you can scan the QR code and get engaged with us. Now, without any further ado, let's go to our first agenda item, our opening address. We have two distinguished speakers here. First will be Maura Brucia, who is the Deputy Director of Cedefop, and that will be followed not by Anna Banchik, as you have seen in the agenda, because she was called in on very short notice to another meeting, but we are in very good hands with her colleague, Koen Nondem, who is the team leader, transparency and portability of skills and qualifications in the European Commission DG Employment, same unit as Anna is, and he kindly agreed to step in and replace Anna. So, but first, the floor is yours, Mara. Thanks for joining us, and please share with us your welcoming remarks.
Thank you, Irene. Good morning, everyone. It is a great pleasure to welcome you all, so numerous, to this webinar. This is one of our final events this year, and it is also one that is closely linked to Cedefop's history, I would say, and to a lighthouse initiative which was launched during a previous Danish presidency back in 2002. When Cedefop was founded 50 years ago, as Irene said, Europe also faced challenging times. And just like them, European leaders recognized that putting people first and empowering them to navigate through these troubled waters is key to success. Also, making people's qualifications easier to understand and take them along to address skill mismatches within EU countries was already one of the key ambitions at that time. And as in the past, our mission as Cedefop is to develop forward-looking ideas and to support policy shaping and implementation with our research, evidence, and policy analysis. And in fact, as I was referring to before, the kickstart for the work on today's European and national qualifications frameworks happened during the Danish presidency in 2002, when the cooperation on that was enhanced. And the commitment then was to investigate how reference levels or common principles for certification could help to make qualifications and skills easier to understand, to compare, transfer, and recognize. And by the time, a major change in looking at qualifications from different countries and the training leading to them was gaining ground, namely the focus on learning outcomes, because the focus on learning outcomes has proved a key pillar in the evolution of the European and national qualifications frameworks. And I'm proud to say that all along the way, we at Cedefop, we have contributed importantly to the conceptual development of the EQF. We have provided technical and analytical support to the member states, the European Commission, the EQF advisory group. And so working throughout the years, working with national authorities and with stakeholders to help them introduce and develop national qualifications frameworks linked to the EQF has become a really crucial part of our work, and we attach high priority to it. And the positive feedback that we keep receiving from you and all other actors has been really encouraging and also reinforcing our efforts. Today, we will highlight the main trends that we have observed across the 41 countries participating in the EQF process. But besides the current state of play, we will also take the opportunity to celebrate what we have achieved, because we should not forget that after all, the EQF is no doubt one of the most successful EU initiatives in education and training. And also through the work of the EQF advisory group, this process has been a very good example of long-standing transnational cooperation. But we will also be looking ahead a little bit today and highlight where more still needs to be done. And so we will also discuss future priority areas. Some of you may have already read our recent policy brief on making qualifications and skills more visible, or you may have looked at our European inventory on national qualification frameworks, which analyzes the developments and is regularly updated in close cooperation with the EQF advisory group, the ETF, the European Commission. And the European inventory also feeds into the global inventory of national and regional qualifications frameworks, at which we work together with the UNESCO and the European Training Foundations. But before starting the discussion, please allow me to briefly highlight three main developments that we have observed through our analysis. The first is that national qualifications frameworks are opening up by including more types of qualifications, especially those awarded outside formal education and training. The second development that we have observed is that, as we have repeatedly stressed at Cedefop, national qualifications frameworks are not standalone instruments. They are closely linked to fostering lifelong learning, not least, for example, by reducing barriers between different types of education and training, but also by helping the validation of skills acquired outside formal education and training settings. Also, the work on national qualifications frameworks has led to more cooperation with labor market actors, and it has also become a complementary tool, I would say, to recognizing foreign qualifications. However, while qualification developers or public authorities today have certainly a better view of the European qualifications landscape and how national qualification frameworks work, this awareness, unfortunately, does not yet extend fully to the ultimate beneficiaries. I mean, to put it bluntly, awareness and use among learners, workers, job seekers, and employers remains overall moderate or low. Of course, there are differences across countries, but I mean, overall, the awareness remains low or moderate. But the good news is that the relevance of the EQF and of the national qualification frameworks is boosted even further by the Union of Skills, because the Union of Skills aims to accelerate efforts to address skills shortages, to enhance lifelong learning, to tap available and potential skills and qualifications. And clearly, the EQF and NQFs have a key role to play in this respect. What now needs to be done, in our view, is to reinforce our efforts to ensure that national qualifications frameworks can help unlock the full potential of the single market by empowering citizens, but also enterprises, to make the best use of the available skills, but also to develop those skills that are missing, and also strengthen the skills base by making the EU, the European Union, a more attractive destination for third country talent. I would like to close these opening remarks by underlining that none of the success achieved so far would have been possible without your contribution and the close cooperation with many of you. We at Cedefop, we remain strongly committed to continuing to support you and more generally to support EQF countries on the way ahead. We will also explore new ways to further strengthen this collaboration and better reach policymakers, social partners, experts, researchers, and also the wider public across Europe. We really look forward to the outcomes of today's discussions and also to continuing, of course, our very interesting and fruitful work with all of you. Thank you very much.
Great. Many thanks, Mara, for sharing your thoughts about the benefits of NQFs, but also great that you highlighted we are not yet there. There are still challenges to be overcome. And I think in today's webinar, we will also hear some good practical examples that might bring us maybe a step closer to overcoming these challenges. And I think it was also quite inspiring that you reminded us it's not a new thing. They have been there. We have been working on that for a while, but nevertheless, they are as relevant as ever, also taking into account the current policy priorities and developments that are going on at European level. And I think that is a very good bridge to invite Koen to the floor. Thanks again for stepping in so flexibly and replacing Anna with the opening remarks from the perspective of the European Commission. So Koen, the floor is yours, please.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Irene. As you already said, today I'm replacing my head of UNET, Anna Bancek, who is not able to join. But instead of her, on behalf of the European Commission, I would like to welcome everybody to this Cedefop webinar on National Qualifications Frameworks in Action. And I would like to thank Cedefop for the organization of the workshop. Now, the title of the workshop today is both dynamic and it's also forward-looking. It reflects the idea that national frameworks are not just technical instruments, as Mara already said, but are living systems that must keep pace with evolving needs, especially as labor markets and also technologies are changing rapidly. And I think we could add even here the geopolitical situation. Let us go back to the origin of qualifications frameworks, because they were established as instruments for recognizing, developing, and connecting people's skills, knowledge, and competences along a continuum of levels, more precisely, qualification levels. And in this context, we can argue that frameworks are giving structure to qualifications, and they help us to understand how qualifications relate to one another. They define learning in terms of outcomes. Learning outcomes is a key issue in discussions around qualifications frameworks. And learning outcomes relate to what a person knows, understands, and is able to do independently from where the learning occurred. And I think this is a key element that we should always keep in mind when talking about qualifications frameworks. The learning pathway is less relevant than the learning itself in its outcomes. So formal education, of course, stays an important pathway, but there is work, there is a lot of non-formal training courses people do in the context of their work, but also volunteering. And in this sense, we can say that qualifications frameworks embody a powerful principle, because all learning has value. This is what they express. But they also express that skills are transferable. They provide roadmaps for progression within and across occupations and sectors. They support lifelong learning and also continuous skills development. And in doing so, they also help building a labor market that is fair, transparent, and dynamic. Now, a question is, of course, how to see qualifications frameworks from a European perspective. Mara already referred to the Copenhagen process, and that started in 2002. But then the EQF itself was adopted in 2008. And the key milestone, I would say, was achieved in 2024, 16 years later, because then the last member state of the EU, Spain, also completed its referencing. And now we can say that all member states have their national frameworks referenced to the EQF. Now, we also, in this discussion, should be aware of the fact that qualifications frameworks are not ends in themselves. They are rather enablers, because they empower individuals, they strengthen societies, they build trust between countries, they support economies. And this building of trust is a precondition for skills to circulate and for qualifications to travel between countries. And what we wish to achieve through the EQF is that qualifications obtained somewhere are easily understood, trusted, and recognized where relevant at any place. And the aim is that qualifications can be used by individuals for purposes of further studies or work across Europe. And so we see this more and more also as a single market environment in which this qualifications transparency is taking place. Now, earlier this year, the Commission presented the Union of Skills as a reply to a need for a more competitive Europe. And a more competitive Europe needs to be built on skills. Only a highly skilled Europe, now and in the future, can be the base for a prosperous and socially inclusive Europe. And actions of the Union of Skills, do not only focus on qualifications framework, of course, but they focus on improving basic skills, on STEM, on up and reskilling during a lifetime, and also on attracting talent to Europe. But one of the key strands of the Union of Skills is to strive for better circulation. And for this reason, the Commission launched the work on a skills portability initiative that is aimed for adoption in the third quarter of 2026. And the skills portability initiative aims at tackling existing barriers to the free movement of workers by ensuring that qualifications and skills are portable across national borders, but also to make the EU a more attractive place for talent, because we do face skills and labor shortages that will only increase during the next years due to demographic changes. What is important for us today is that the Skills Portability Initiative will build on existing transparency tools with, and we can say this, the EQF at the core of these tools. It further strives for accelerated digitalization by means of EU-wide digital credentials. A public consultation on the Skills Portability Initiative was launched last week. Targeted stakeholder consultations have started, and studies supporting impact assessments for the preparation of proposals have been launched. And all of you, and there are many I would like to invite you to reply to the public consultation and also to disseminate it further to stakeholders. Now I would like to come back to the theme of today, National Qualifications Frameworks in Action. So I would like to congratulate Cedefop on the crucial role that it plays in systematically collecting information about NQFs since the start of the EQF, culminated in the NQF inventory and also in the NQF online tool. This is the richest source of information on NQFs in Europe that is there, that exists. And this information is extremely valuable for those who want to have insights on how NQFs are used nationally and how they relate indeed to further policies, education, employment, but also other policies. I hope that the workshop of today will give new insights. The workshop is really a chance to reflect on what has been achieved in your country, in Europe, even more globally. It's an opportunity to examine success factors, but also to address persisting and emerging challenges for NQFs in action. Thank you very much, and I wish all of us an interesting and fruitful workshop.
Thanks a lot, Koen, and thanks also for recognizing so kindly Cedefop's contribution on this topic and the debate and the insights that we can provide to bring the developments forward. I would like to echo, I'm also looking forward very much to today's discussion. I think they are very timely, also considering all the elements that you gave us in your scene setting, introduction from European Union perspective of what is in the pipeline and what is coming up. Dear participants, please find in the chat the link to the consultation that Koen mentioned. Please answer it, please disseminate it. Certainly this type of feedback is very important to bring the agenda forward. Now, let's go to our next session of this webinar, our keynote speeches. And I'm here joined by two of my Cedefop colleagues. I have here Iraklis Pliakis, who manages Cedefop's work on NQFs for a good while. So he's a good expert on the topic. And he also not only knows the status quo, but he has been following the developments in the different countries for a while. So he can build upon what we heard in the introductory speeches about what has happened so far and where maybe there are still the gaps. And he will be joined by another of our colleagues, Aristos Theocharous, another expert in the qualification and credentials team of Cedefop. And he is also an expert in taking stock of national reforms of VET policies in more general, with a specific focus also on NQFs. And also he can also tell us a little bit more in how far they are aligned with EU priorities and developments. But beyond that, he's also working on other activities, like, for example, Cedefop's IVAT Mobility Scoreboard. So good to combine the different fields of expertise and the different activities that we are doing. So please, colleague, the floor is yours. Please share our insights with our participants.
Thanks a lot, Irene. Thanks a lot for welcoming us. I'm really pleased to see all of you with us today. Before sharing some of the key findings of Cedefop analysis, we would like to invite you to participate in a Slido poll where we can see your views on specific issues related to NQF implementation. But the first question is more of an introductory question. As you can see, is about how frequently do you reference to key elements of NQFs, for instance, level descriptors, qualification databases, NQF levels in your work. You can either follow the link that is shared with you in the chat, or you can use the QR code to join the Slido. I see that already 20 people have joined the Slido, and you can vote. You can see the results. There are a lot of people that use this on a daily basis, but of course, 27% approximately use it on a monthly basis, or weekly 20%. It's good to see that there are people that have a different level of interaction with the NQFs. We also see that almost 80% of our participants use the frameworks less often than on a monthly basis, but this is very welcome. This is one of the purposes of this event, to, let's say, showcase to everybody the importance of NQFs, try to further, let's say, promote the use, take advantage of what NQFs can do. Aristo?
Yes, the scope of this event and other events of similar nature is to raise awareness of the importance, and let's hope that will help more people to have their NQFs in their daily work progressively. So yes,
of course. You are absolutely right. We see that 40% of our participants use the NQFs on a daily basis. This was more or less expected, but because we are also addressing, I have invited experts on NQFs here today with us. Now let's go to the second question, and this is more related to the content. In your view, which are the main areas of use of NQFs? Could it be in quality assurance of qualifications, in recognition of foreign qualifications, or could it be in recruitment procedures in the labor market, in developing and renewing qualifications, making qualifications easier to understand, or strengthening cooperation among NQF stakeholders? Let's go and see what our participants think. Of course, our data has showed that in all these areas, to some extent, NQFs are used.
Yes, this is what I was going to say, that all areas are relevant. NQF is used in all these areas. Just we want to see how our participants feel about these different areas.
Yes. What I can see is that approximately 50% of participants believe that they are often used in recognition of foreign qualifications. Also, 50% of those that have answered that, because you have the chance to select 3 options. That's why you see the shares a bit strange, but also 50% of those that have answered, 53 said that they are using quality assurance of qualifications, and approximately 50% in making qualifications easier to understand. I think that is very positive indication that more than 20% believe that in recruitment procedures in the labor market, NQFs are used, and this is a positive indication for the future. Now, Aristo, would you like to briefly take us through the third question?
Yes, since you are talking about the future, the third question is more forward-looking, and it has to do with the view of the participants, which should be the main future priorities in the NQF implementation. So again, you are able to choose up to 3 options: improving or developing new qualification databases, including more qualifications in the NQFs, for example, micro-credentials, support stakeholders and users in using the NQFs, raising awareness among end users, and indicate the NQF levels on more qualification and diplomas and certificates. We can see at least that including more qualifications and raising awareness are considered to be future priorities for the NQF implementation. And this is right, because as we said before, events like today's ones help to raise awareness, and it should be a key element for the future priorities in the NQF implementation.
I agree with you, Aristos, but just as a teaser of what is coming up, we will see also in a while what countries have answered to these questions through the data that we have collected. I would like to really thank you for participating in this Slido poll, and now we will move to the second part of this session, where we will present to you some of the key findings of Cedefop analysis on NQF developments across Europe. But before doing so, I would like to briefly set the scene and describe to you some of the key features of NQFs across Europe, and also some details of how we have collected data. As you can see in this map, there are 41 countries participating in the EQF process. 37 countries have already linked their framework to the EQF. What does it mean? That they have gone through a referencing procedure and developed a referencing report, which was then presented to the EQF advisory group. And when this report is endorsed, then the NQF is linked to the EQF. Why this procedure is crucial? Because it increases trust among different qualification systems across Europe, and it increases transparency of qualifications issued in different countries. Of course, we know that qualification systems are evolving, so countries have to develop updated referencing reports. 12 countries have done so, 11 countries are planning to do in the near future. So this is an indication that countries invest on the EQF process, because in order to update a report, you need to invest in human resources, in time. It's not an easy procedure, and it's a clear indication that qualification frameworks remain relevant and they have a potential in the future. Also, what I would like to highlight here is that the EQF process doesn't include only EU member states, but also EFTA countries and candidate countries. Now, how do we collect this data? As you can see, there are close relations between EQF countries, the European Commission, and Cedefop and ETF. Through the EQF advisory group, which is a major a body of major importance in the EQF process. For instance, we launch every 2 years a survey. Countries fill in the survey, we collect the data, we analyze them, and we develop NQF country-specific reports, which are included in the European inventory of NQF, which is available on our website. In this way, we support the work of the EQF advisory group by providing data, but also peer learning activities that countries participate. And based on this data, we have recently developed the policy brief that we are presenting to you today, and you can also find it on our website. This policy brief is based on 42 country reports that were available to us at the time of. Can we move to the next slide, please? At the time that we were collecting this data. And you can see now this policy brief, making qualifications and skills more visible. Let's go now to some of the key findings included in this policy brief. Initially, I would like to share with you an overview of NQFs in Europe. In this map, you can see the development stage of NQFs across Europe. 25 are at operational stage. But what does this mean exactly? As you can see, NQFs provide a reference point for developing and reviewing standards of qualifications. And also it's crucial to note that the key instruments for the NQF implementation, like qualification databases, are functional. There are 16 countries that are activation stage. And that means that the institutional arrangements are there, but still some instruments needed to be developed. For instance, in some countries, there are no functional qualification databases. Why is this important? Why am I focusing too much on databases? Because now we are facing a period where it's dominated by the digital transition, and databases can be crucial instruments in order qualification to remain relevant. Why? Because they offer information on qualifications. They are making them more transparent. It's easier for learners to know which skills are linked to each qualification. How? Because countries present the learning outcomes that are related to each qualification in these databases. And of course, other kinds of information, which are very interesting for learners, employers, employees. So by developing these databases, we can build European maps of qualifications. And of course, interlinking the databases with the Europass. Now, let me give you some other findings about NQFs across Europe. European NQFs are rather advanced when compared to qualification frameworks from other regions of the globe. Nevertheless, the NQF implementation differs among countries, meaning that each country focuses on different priorities according to their national context. And of course, the speed and intensity of NQF implementation varies. Some countries are moving more faster. Some other countries need to intensify their efforts in NQF implementation. In this map, we see that Northern European countries usually are painted with a dark blue color, meaning that they are more advanced. And also, EU member states in general are more advanced than countries that are outside the EU. Now, let's move to another interesting point, and it has to do with developing comprehensive NQFs. In the previous decade, countries were trying to include in their frameworks qualifications from different subsystems of the formal education and training system. You see that there are 20 countries that include qualifications from all subsystems of the formal education and training part. Plus, there are 18 countries that also include qualifications awarded outside formal education and training. In total, there are 20 such NQFs. And this is a trend. Lately, countries work considerably on opening up their frameworks to qualifications awarded outside formal education and training. As you can see, there are 7 countries that are open but do not include such qualifications, but they have the potential to include it in the near future. And there are 11 countries that are planning to include these qualifications or more qualifications that are awarded outside formal education and training. Why this is crucial to include qualifications awarded outside formal education and training? Because in this way, NQFs can contribute to make learning visible no matter how it is achieved or where it is achieved, meaning that skills that are acquired in a non-formal environment can become more visible by including these qualifications in the NQFs. And also, it makes progression in education easier because, for instance, education and training provider can have a better understanding of what a qualification is about. So these efforts are really crucial that our countries are doing, but they are also trying to open up frameworks to include different types of qualifications. As you will see in the next slide, they are opening up their frameworks to micro-credentials, for instance. You see, in 2022, there were 13 NQFs open to micro-credentials. Now there are 18, and 10 NQFs can potentially include micro-credentials, meaning that they are open to them, but they haven't included them yet. 16 countries are planning to either include micro-credentials for the first time, or they are working to include more micro-credentials in their frameworks. Let me clarify this. The term micro-credential is seldom used as such at the national level. Nevertheless, there are different types of qualifications that could be considered as micro-credentials, meaning partial qualifications, micro-qualifications, free market qualifications. There are numerous names. Also, to link this discussion with the previous slide, I would like to say to you that sorry, I was a bit lost focus. Micro-credentials can be awarded within and outside formal education and training. And let me now clarify by an example why opening up frameworks is so important. We're trying to build a European map of qualifications. So I will again use the example of the Google Maps. In order to navigate through a city, you don't only need to know the main highways, you also need to know smaller streets in order to find your destination. The same applies for defining learning pathways. Those that they need to define the learning pathway, learners, they don't only have they should not only have access to information on full formal qualifications, they should also have access to qualifications or different learning opportunities. And the more they have, the better it is. So that's why it's crucial that our countries are working towards really developing comprehensive map of qualifications across Europe. Now, Cedefop analysis has also focused on identified the use of NQFs. And as you can see in the next slide, there are three key areas of use. The first is in design and review of qualifications. And there you can see that education and training providers are the target group that are using NQFs the most. And for instance, they use the level descriptors to develop their qualifications. A clear indication of active use of NQFs is the increasing number of level qualifications awarded outside formal education and training, because providers of these qualifications have to comply with the requirements of the NQFs in order their qualifications to be included. And this is the procedure that is taking place right now. Quality assurance of qualification is another area where we find that the use has increased. One of the criteria for the accreditation of a study program is compliance with NQF regulations. This is an example that exists in many different countries. And also, the procedure of including qualifications in NQF acts often as a form of quality assurance, especially when it comes again to qualifications awarded outside formal education and training. Now, the recognition of foreign qualification is an area that countries are increasingly use NQFs lately. In 5 countries, the use of NQFs is stipulated by legal arrangements or government regulations. So actually, it is in the law that we should use it. Then, quite often, countries report that the framework is extensively used in recognition procedures. And also, in fewer cases, the NQFs serve as a complementary source of information. Now, we have discussed about the usual suspects, public authorities and qualification developers. Let's see what is happening with learners. Learners use NQF, are aware of NQFs, but to a low or moderate level. Of course, there are differences among countries. There are countries that learners are well aware and use a lot the NQFs. They mainly use it when they plan studies abroad or for recognition purposes. The awareness among learners tends to be higher when NQF and NQF levels are indicated on certificates and diplomas. Let's now see how NQFs are linked to the labor market and how they are used in the labor market. Countries develop quite often structures that support cooperation among different stakeholders from the different education and training subsystems and the labor market. There are inter-stakeholder committees of a permanent nature that, apart from an advisory role, they also participate in decision making. There are sectoral councils and there are advisory bodies in 13 countries supporting the NQF implementation. Why is crucial the cooperation? Because it's not a given always, so it is supported by the NQF implementation. Further, when labor market representatives participate in developing qualifications, they can support the linkages between education and training system and the labor market. So they can support the education system to better address the needs of the labor market, developing skills that will increase employability. Now, let's see how companies are using the NQFs. In the 2020s, the use of NQFs in the labor market has gradually increased, but remains rather low. There are 18 countries that reported that NQF levels are used in recruitment procedures. The number of countries has slightly increased since 2022, but I will have to say here that we should be cautious with how we treat these findings. We should not overemphasize because this way of using NQFs is at an initial stage. Nevertheless, it's a very positive indication of the potential of NQFs and what of the role of NQFs that NQFs can play in the future. Workers and job seekers, they also do not use the NQFs yet to a high level, but to a great extent, but they use it. They use it when they develop their CVs, when they aim to work in another country, when they try to access further training. Also, Cedefop try to analyze the key areas of impact of NQFs. As you can see in the figure, there are different areas that NQFs have an impact. The majority of countries have reported that they have promoted transparency and comparability of qualifications. And this is linked to promoting international comparability of qualifications. This is crucial, and it can happen through the development of databases, through indicating NQF levels on certificates, and through the use of learning outcomes, because learning outcomes offer a common language that help us better understand what qualifications are about and the skills they offer. Also, another area of impact is that they have contributed to promoting learning outcomes, the use of learning outcomes in education and training systems. More than 30 countries have reported this to us. Also, they can support progression in education and training because they build trust on qualifications. They are easier now qualifications to be recognized by providers, other providers of education and training. And also they promote lifelong learning, especially when they are used as a filter by governments for funding lifelong learning. And they can contribute to parity of esteem between education and training systems, for instance, by placing qualifications from different education subsystems at the same level. But let's see, which is the potential for NQFs in the Union of Skills. I haven't mentioned the Union of Skills that much in my presentation, but some of you may have noticed that many of the things that the areas that NQFs have an impact, or the way that NQFs are used, are related to some of the key objectives that the Union of Skills has put in the forefront. Meaning, NQFs support cross-border mobility of workers and learners. NQFs have contributed to making skills acquired through qualifications more visible across countries and within countries. Also, they have supported progression in education and training. So actually, what I would like to say is that some of the objectives of the Union of Skills NQFs have been supporting these objectives for quite some time now, maybe more than 15 years. When it comes to the future, briefly, I would like to highlight that some of the future priorities identified by the countries are the following: raise awareness of NQFs among end users, meaning learners, employees, employers; expand the NQF coverage, namely by including qualifications awarded outside formal education and training and micro-credentials, and by developing new or improving existing databases. And by that brings me to the final slide. I would like to present to you the NQF team that works on this project. There is Aristos Theocharous and Vicky Oreopoulou, who have contributed a lot in analyzing developments at national level, Maria Elena Katsura and Dagfinn Herbert, who have been supporting our work throughout this time, and of course Zelda Atsara, because the NQF and the EQF are strongly interrelated. We cooperate with Zelda almost on a daily basis. And with that, I would like to thank you all for your attention, and I would like to give the floor to Aristos to present to you some of the key features of the NQF online tool. Aristos, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Iraklis. As you said, it's not possible to present all the features, so it's going to be only the major features of the tool. So I invite you, if you can, to visit the page, and we can see together some of the main features. So the tool has been monitoring the evolution of the European Qualifications Framework since 2018, and it has been updated with the latest 2024 data. You can browse by country. You can select a country which will take you to the NQF state of play for the country. And from here, you may select any other reporting year, or you may select any other country. So if we choose to go to 2022, the other country that we will also choose will also be the one of the 2022. We'll come back to this page later on. From the overview page, which is a very nice page where you can find compact information such as the scope of the framework, whether it's linked or not. The most important, let's say, feature of this page is the last two columns. In the last columns, you can find the national website along with the qualification registers and databases. This is a very rich resource where someone can directly access all available national databases where those are available, registers across Europe, and thus gain very insightful and detailed information on qualifications. Coming back to the country page. From the country page, the default is the map view. The countries are color-coded according to their stage of development. By selecting a specific country, you can find again some very useful information, such as the stage of development, whether the NQF is linked to the EQF, and the available country reports. From the grid view, we can also see the same information. Let's say by selecting a specific country, we'll go to the country page where we can see the NQF state of play. From the NQF state of play, we may find more information on one of the 8 chapters we would like to explore, such as the NQF objectives, the NQF implementation and impact. And at the end of this page, we can see that there is the latest available country-specific report in PDF format for someone who wishes to download. Another very useful feature in this page is the button for the NQF table, which leads you directly to the NQF table for each country where you can. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you. Some of participants say that the screen is frozen. We can see the landing page, the introductory page of the tool right now.
All right. Can you? I will stop sharing and share again.
Are you sharing? Because we still see the we still see the landing page. Cedefop. Can you hear us, Aristo?
It looks like we have lost him.
Yes.
He looks now, not only his screen frozen, but also
Yes,
his
let
picture.
me try to share my screen. Sorry for this. So I don't know if you can see my screen. Can you verify if you can see my screen?
Not yet. I think it's still loading. Now we see the landing page again. Thanks, Vicky, for stepping in.
Give me a sec, please. Hello. Sorry for this technical. Aristos is ready and he will be presenting in a second, please.
Can you see the page now?
We can see the landing page, yes.
All right. We'll go to the country page. Have you seen the overview page before? I will show it again. I mean, the main points was the national NQF websites and the qualification registers website, where you can find more useful information. I think before I froze, I was in the country page. So from the map view, as I said before, you can see more specific information for each country, and it's color-coded according to the stage of development. Selecting a specific country, we will move to the NQF state of play of the country, where we can see more information on, let's say, national objectives, the NQF objectives of the system, and at the end of the page, as I said before, you can find the country-specific report in PDF format, which you can, of course, download. And another useful, let's say, feature is the NQF table. From the NQF table, you can see the qualifications types, the NQF levels, and the NQF level for each country, for each qualification and how it corresponds. But let's move to one of the most interesting features of the page, the NQF comparison page. So from here, again, you can select a country you would like to explore. And by default, it goes to the reporting year of 2024. But again, you may choose any other year, and then you can select any other country to compare with. For this example, we'll choose Ireland. You may compare specific EQF levels, or you may compare all EQF levels. So by comparing all EQF levels, you may see that you can clearly compare the two frameworks and see which qualifications correspond to each EQF level. For example, NQF 8 for Austria corresponds to NQF 10 of Ireland, but both of them align at the EQF level 8. This is an important feature for the tool because it allows users to quickly understand how qualifications relate across countries, supporting clearer recognition, smoother mobility, and more informed decision-making for learners. Also, there's a very nice feature which highlights the level descriptors at each level, which is very valuable information on the knowledge, skills, and competences at each level, serving as a common reference point, thus making comparisons more meaningful and reliable. So let's move to the final, let's say, feature of the page we would like to show is the theme comparison. This one is very important also for policymakers, for decision makers, and for researchers. Here, again, you can select any country. You can select the same country for a different reporting year in order to see the progress through the years for a specific theme, or you can select a group of countries or all the countries together in order, let's say, to compare and see how a specific theme or themes have changed, or they do find the similarities or not. So, for example, we can see the institutional arrangements, and you can see how each country addresses this specific theme. So, by this, Irene, I give the floor back to you. Thank you very much.
Yes, thanks both Iraklis and Aristos for showing us the latest of Cedefop's work on the topic. Sorry again about the technical issue, but feel free to always go back to and test and explore the tool yourself. Personally, I think what is a very nice feature is this comparability possibility between countries, between years, because I think this makes it very useful and user-friendly. Now, because of the technicalities, we are now a little bit out of time. I have seen that there were a few messages in the chat which were asking about micro-credentials and inclusion of non-formal and informal learning. Let me please postpone that to our panel discussion. Some of our speakers will have something very interesting to say on these topics. Just one question to Iraklis. There was in the chat a remark whether we find the information about which country is doing what in the NQF development, specifically who is including qualifications outside formal education and training. Can we find that in the report that you have presented?
I'm sorry, Irene, you were referring to me because I
Yes.
had get some issues with the sound. Now I can hear you fine.
So there was one question that I would like to refer you to in the chat. When you were presenting, you said 18 countries are including qualifications outside of formal education and training in the NQFs. And the question was whether which countries are these? So rather than now listing them, can we find the information in the publication?
Yes. They are not named as such in the publication, but we can share to participants the information, of course, because we have it in our databases. We will come back to all the questions and explain, give the right answers.
Very good. Thanks a lot. So then I would ask you, Iraklis, and also Aristos, to look at the comments and the questions in the chat, and you please answer in writing so that we catch up a little bit with the time. So thanks again for your contributions, and we change over now to our panel. I would like to thank our 4 distinguished panelists that they take the time of joining us today. We have 2 representatives from national level. First, I would like to invite Frederike Jansen to join us in our online pool here. She's a strategic advisor at the National Coordination Point for the Netherlands Qualification Framework, and she oversees in that role the monitoring, management, the implementation of the Dutch Qualification Framework. And she will be joined from another national perspective from Croatia, from Josipa Česnovar, who is the head of section for the Croatian Qualification Framework, placed in the Ministry of Science, Education and Youth. And then we have 2 representatives more from the European level. First, I would like to welcome Robert Comaroni from the European Labour Authority. He works there in the EURES team, the European Coordination Office of EURES, which is a large European network of public and private employment services and other institutions who aim to operationally facilitate free movement of labor through matching job vacancies and job candidates. And Robert is a seconded national expert from the German Public Employment Service. And last but not least, we have Kun Nandan, whom you already know from the opening remarks. So he will give us again the European perspective from the Commission side. So let me start with addressing a first question to Josipa from Croatia. We have seen there was quite some engagement in the chat talking about micro-credentials, micro-qualifications. From the research, the information that has been gathered, we know that Croatia is one of the countries that focuses on micro-qualifications. Can you tell us a little bit more about how is it done, what exactly is done, what are the characteristics in your system, please?
Yes, thank you. So I will try to explain what is specific in Croatian system. In Croatia, we are talking about lifelong learning programs on levels of higher education. And we are talking about micro qualifications in adult education. So there is a longer tradition of lifelong learning programs and adult education programs in Croatia. But following EU recommendation on micro credential, the legislation changed. We also encouraged the development of such shorter programs. So what we did is in higher education, there are still lifelong learning programs, and this is the term that is used. We didn't use the term micro-credential, but the legislation is changed in order to in order to encourage the development of lifelong learning programs aligned with the Croatian Qualifications Framework. So only if they are aligned with the Croatian Qualifications Framework, we consider them to be micro-credentials, this European sense. Then in adult education, there are micro qualifications, which are introduced a few years ago through the law on adult education. They are also aligned with the Croatian Qualifications Framework. So what is important for both of these types of qualifications, it's not only they are shorter than qualifications, but also they are quality assured.
Yes, thanks for that overview. Very interesting to see that national perspective. And against this background, do you think that NQFs succeeded in promoting lifelong learning and the use of micro qualifications, as you call it in Croatia, in your country?
Yes, the Croatian Qualifications Framework was important also for the development of micro-credentials for a few reasons. One of them is the link with the labor market, because the QF procedure include a cooperation between different labor market stakeholders, which is very useful when new qualifications are developed. Then another reason is the quality, which is short for QF mechanisms, and this is why micro-credentials are developed in this quality way. And what is also then the transparency. So the register of the Croatian Qualifications Framework had also a bigger role somehow in promoting the system of credentials or in our lifelong learning programs and micro qualifications.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let me turn to Frederica. As mentioned in the chat, the other topic that was already gaining interest is when Iraklis was talking about inclusion of non-formal, informal learning in NQFs. In the Netherlands, you have succeeded in including that. So can you give us a bit more of the detail about the process, how it was done, but also if you could identify and give any recommendations of success factors to inspire also other countries, please.
Of course, and thank you very much for inviting me to elaborate a little bit on the practice of the NQF. Before I answer, I think it's important to sketch the context of adult learning in the Netherlands, which Cedefop has also done very well in the inventory of the NQFs, of course. So the participation in adult learning in the Netherlands is relatively high, 65% or 56% of the population aged between 25 and 64 are partaking in education and learning, according to the most recent data. And a large share of that is done in a non-formal market. So there's a huge relevance for us to open up the NQF to the non-formal qualifications. And maybe it's important to also state that when I say non-formal, I mean all qualifications that are not regulated by the government. So there's no involvement of any ministry. And so non-formal qualifications are all qualifications offered by private education providers, sectoral bodies, or company training. And the NQF has been open to such non-formal qualifications from the very start, from the beginning of the NQF in 2011. Back then, all formal education was classified generically in one of the 8 NQF levels. And so our main focus has been on the classification of non-formal education and training. Providers of non-formal qualifications can apply voluntarily to have their qualifications classified in the NQF. And so I think that a couple of our success factors in terms of the organization, for example, has been that we've always had a very pragmatic approach. It's been a process of trial and error, so to say, and we've made adjustments along the way. So, for example, we mentioned before the micro qualifications, the micro credentials. One of the criteria for for inclusion into the NQF is labor market relevance. And in 2011, at the start of the NQF, it was decided that the labor market relevance could be proven by showing the volume of qualifications. So 400 plus hours of learning effort would prove a labor market relevant qualification. And a couple of years ago, we let go of that because we saw an increasing interest for the classification of smaller learning units. So now we've adapted the criteria and we can include qualifications from all kind of volumes as long as they can prove that they're labor market relevant. By instance, for showing a statement for the need of qualifications by employers, by showing vacancies or other data. And now we've included all these micro credentials. Maybe they're not necessarily called like this, but the smaller learning units in the NQF as well. Another success factor would be, I think, a dedicated team of experts. We call ourselves the NCP NQF, and the C in the NCP stands for the National Coordination. So we coordinate the whole process, but there are a lot of dedicated people involved in the actual classification procedure that we heavily rely on. So we're very thankful for that. And we are now run by an autonomous body with very enthusiastic colleagues and consultants and advisors who are used to project-based working, which helps speeding up the procedure and the process a lot. And maybe the last success factor would be that we've always been very dedicated to communication. So since the start, we've had a website. We've always given information sessions, I think 5 a year or something. We post on LinkedIn twice a week, and we've learned a lot from other countries and also disseminate our knowledge to end users. And so we've always been very end user focused, and we've held our communication channels open to kind of 3 different stakeholder groups: the learners, the employers, and the education providers, giving a lot of thought on the tone of voice for each of these groups, of course.
Thanks a lot. I think with what you started with, it resonates very well. What we heard also in the introductory speeches, it's a moving target. It's not a one-off, but you are adapting it, continuously aligning with labor market developments. And we'll talk a little bit more about labor market relevance in a few minutes. And I think what you ended with again is very well aligned with what we have seen from the study presentation, the importance about raising awareness, making visible that these type of systems exist and how they are used. Now, from what you have been describing, and it sounds very interesting and promising, what would you say is the impact of it? So do you see anything practical happening on the grounds?
I think so, and I can also say so because we have an impact. We have our impact measured every year by different organizations, and opening up our NQF has, I think, increased the visibility and the recognition of non-formal qualifications, of course, and it has increased also the awareness of the variability in qualifications that can lead up to a labor market position for individuals. Providers of non-formal qualifications have also said that they value the transparency that comes with the classification, and they see inclusion also as a boost to the quality of their qualifications. And the link to the NQF and EQF also boosts credibility and, of course, helps comparison to other qualifications. So yeah, it has definitely shown an impact of the EQF here in the Netherlands.
Very good. Good to hear. And I think it's also a good bridge to a question that I have to Robert, turning now to European level, but still remaining operational. So as I said in earlier on, EURES aims mainly to match job vacancies in one country with candidates in another country. And there is a network of about 1,000 advisors across Europe who facilitate that process. So we, a lot of practical experience. What are the challenges related to free movement? And recognition of qualifications is one of them. So can you share a little bit of the experiences of these EURES advisors on this topic, and maybe also building upon to what Federica just said in terms of the transparency of the learning outcomes?
Yes, indeed. Good morning, Irene. Good morning, colleagues. Just give you one number because I see the logo of Cedefop colleagues. You are 50 years old in this year, and the EURES network is 31 years old network. So this is something historical for you, for the audience, that we manage or try to manage and foster the labor mobility across Europe since 1994. I prepared two stories. The first story is about Stefanos, and the second story is about Maria. We are approaching Christmas because Irene asked me to give you some practical information what we heard from EURES advisors and job seekers. So what we do, we have, let's say, Stefanos. Stefanos is a bus driver in Thessaloniki, and Stefanos is looking for a job in Germany. He goes to the local labor office in Thessaloniki, finding the EURES advisor, and the EURES advisor is helping Stefanos to find a job. We have 3.3 million jobs currently on the EURES portal. This EURES advisor, let's call she is Ekaterini, the Greek name, and she is calling up Jürgen in München, saying that, hello, Jürgen, we have a job seeker, he's Stefanos, he has his ID card, and on the second side of the ID card, there is a license plate, then it means that he can drive buses. And then please help Stefanos to find a job in Germany. This is a very simple process because the recognition is not a big issue, not a big deal. A bus driver can drive bus also in Germany and in Greece, nothing special. But let's see, and let's check a more complex issue, and let's speak about Maria. Maria is in the southern part of Europe. She is a nurse, which is getting complex because in some countries, and almost in all countries, but you know better this in Thessaloniki, Cedefop colleagues, if you want to work as a nurse in a different country, a recognition process must be done in many countries because the curriculums are different, the conditions are different, and the destination country authorities would like to check if the curriculum is the same, the experiences are the same, and so on and so on. It takes 6-7 months, maybe 1.5 years, so it can be a very long process for the destination country's perspective. Finally, Maria gets a positive stamp on her paper. He can start working in a Nordic country. Everyone is happy. The story is super good. But later on, Maria feels some frustration because in her home country, a nurse means assistant doctor. Because the nurse in her home country worked with the doctor and assisting doctors, and the kind of assistant nurse works with the clients in the hospitals. But in the Nordic country, in the new home, the nurse works for the clients and not anymore for the doctors. So even the recognition of qualifications are fine and super good, no one checked the job description of this matching. And this is not the good news for Maria. And this is also not a good news for the employer because somehow the matching is not properly managed. I am stop speaking now.
Thank you. Well, thanks for this very practical example. And again, we end up with challenges at the end, although of the success story. Nevertheless, as also Koen mentioned in his introductory speech, there is the intention at European level to increase intra-EU mobility. And EURES is one of the tools that we have there. In your experience, Robert, do you think NQF can help with that more employers and workers are engaging in mobility?
Of course, because it has, I'm just learning what you are doing now, and this is super visible. And this is a key factor to be visible for companies and for job seekers, what we have on the both sides of the paper. And this visibility, I think, has a good power.
Very good, thanks. And again, this was one of the recommendations that Iraklis showed on the last slide and that also Friederike mentioned. So visibility is something that we still need to work on. Now, let me turn to Koen. You have very long-standing experience in the field of EQF. Can you tell us what currently are the focal points of the EQF and NQF implementation?
Yeah, thank you, Irene, for that question. I mean, there is quite a lot going on, I think, at national level among the National Qualifications Frameworks. And of course, we also at European level, I mean, we look a bit more at the European perspective, which at the same time means also, you know, looking at countries together. So the first point that I would like to mention here is that I think we can observe that, and the presentation by Iraklis also shows that year after year, and that's a positive news, we see that a larger number of qualifications frameworks is becoming operational. So we see a consolidation, also more legally established qualifications frameworks. So that is actually quite a good base. But at the same time, I mean, we also see that developments take time and last quite long. And we do still have this fragmentation in Europe between, on the one hand, indeed, 25 that are well advanced, that are operational, but also others that have been in place for quite a time, but that are not yet that operational. And we see this a bit also through the qualifications registers, because at the European from a European perspective, it's of course important that information on qualifications and also on the skills contained in qualifications is accessible in an easy way. For example, for employers, and maybe also, Robert, your example that you mentioned, if we would have more skills-based matching, maybe you would not have had the same issue. So this is something that we see as ongoing. That we also are supporting, that we also, you know, think about that we need to act upon in skills portability. Yeah, and where is work still to do? Then a second point, I think, that is clearly shown and was also clearly shown in the presentation by Iraklis, is that qualifications frameworks are becoming more inclusive for all sorts of learning. This was also pointed to in the EQF evaluation that was published early 24. And this has been actually an area of work that the EQF has been dealing with from the beginning. You know, how to include and how to have this role of the EQF as referencing framework for all types and levels of qualifications. And some countries from the beginning, like the Netherlands, like Sweden, they have said, okay, yes, we see this as a prime target for our NQF to take all that non-formal learning, all those elements on board so that we have a more comprehensive framework. And I think this also inspired others. In the evaluation, there was a bit of critique that the NQFs were not sufficiently comprehensive, but we see it now coming. And where I think really there is a need to do a bit more work also together in terms of reflection is how to address micro-credentials, because there is a huge potential there. And the landscape of micro-credentials is also huge, but it's also very diverse and fragmented. Now, a third point that I would like to mention here, it hasn't been mentioned so much, but is the work that we are doing at European level, but always in cooperation also with the countries. And that is namely on the third country dimension, on the international dimension of the EQF. And I think this is something where we see that we will have more things to do, in future to compare the EQF with qualifications frameworks from outside Europe, because this can support labor migration, targeted labor migration, and can be also a useful tool in order to make recognition of qualifications easier. And this comes to another point we can observe, I think, and this was also seen as something very important. More qualifications frameworks are now in use at national level as reference points for the recognition of qualifications. So this I think also goes together with this this international work of the EQF. Then two other points I would like to mention. One is that we are doing work on the certificate supplement to review it and to reflect together on how we can improve it, with also in the longer term the ambition to digitalize the certificate supplement, because this is really an important document. Again, visibility, showing the skills that people bring with them with a certain qualification and in an accessible way. And the last point was mentioned briefly, but not so much in depth, but to do all of this and for visibility, it's also really important that we continue working on learning outcomes, to make learning outcomes better understood, to make them more visible. And and as an example, like I mentioned, the work that was done together again, because the EQF is a cooperation on formulating short descriptions of learning outcomes, so they can be more easily understood and also integrated in qualifications databases.
Okay, thank you. So again, confirmed a lot is happening in the field, but you also mentioned more needs to be done. And you hinted already to some of the things, again, also well in alignment with what we heard from the study recommendations. But could you give us one or the other example where you think concrete actions would be needed to ensure that EQF, NQFs really achieve their objectives and remain relevant?
Yeah, it is really, I think, Elena, that is a crucial point. I mean, qualifications frameworks really need to undertake efforts, and this is not a one-off effort, this is a permanent effort to stay relevant. So the good news is that many countries that have more operational frameworks are reviewing their framework on a regular basis, are renewing it. What is very important as well is to do this not only, let's say, in a national context, but also to update the referencing, so that also at the European level, we do have this accessibility of information on qualifications, because what we are striving for is to look more at the European Union as a single market, also in terms of qualifications and skills. And of course, the EQF and the NQFs. And I think when you talk about EQF and NQF, I mean, those are always working together, right? And this is their added value. I mean, the NQF benefits from the EQF, but the EQF is nothing without NQFs, because it makes no sense as referencing framework if you don't have NQFs related to it. So this is an important area of work where also I think as Europe we should be ambitious, and this is again the connection with Europe's competitiveness in the future. We see that also the last few months Europe is more on its own, so to say, and needs to think about its own future, including in relation to qualifications and skills for its future economy, and that means more cooperation needed.
Very good, but that's very much in the European spirit that we have the cooperation across the countries. Yeah, great. Thanks all four of you for this first round of intervention. Let me get back to our audience. So I hope not only me, but also you find interesting what has been shared. We would like to hear from you. So colleagues will be posting in the chat a link to an evaluation survey for this webinar. So please share your thoughts, your feedback with us, so that we know how we shall proceed for future webinars. That said, let me get back to Josipa, as now also Kuhn ended with, and we heard also from Mara in the beginning, NQF is not a standalone something, but it needs to be embedded into a bigger ecosystem. So can you tell us a little bit more from your experience in Croatia? How was it done there? How is it embedded in the bigger framework? Which policies are influenced by the NQF, are influencing the NQF, and your experiences here from the national level?
Yes, the CROQF is linked with different policies. For instance, it had and it has bigger influence on the quality assurance, since especially at the beginning it was introduced on a voluntary basis, but it was introduced as important quality assurance tool. So not all qualifications were at the beginning aligned with the CROQF, but those that were, their quality was assured. And today, it led to the situation that is today, that the CROQF is now introduced in a different legislation pertaining to different education sectors. So it is introduced in the legislation regarding vocational education and training, adult education, higher education, and has influence in the different sectors. It is also important for the recognition of prior learning, which is the system that is developed in Croatia, and there is also the Croatian Qualifications Framework that gives a good foundation, and especially since there is this structure of smaller units within standards that are important for recognizing learning outcomes. And of course, it has a role in the recognition policy. National Qualifications Frameworks are included in this legislation as well.
Okay, thank you. And I would like to come back to one of the remarks that was made earlier on the labor market relevance. That's important. So also here, Croatia is working on that. So can you very briefly, in a few words, say something about what is the interrelationship between labor market developments, labor market data, labor market representatives, and the developments that are going on in the education sector?
So in Croatia, there are many tools regarding labor market. So there is, and they are developed within the CROQF. So there is a list of their occupational standards being developed. So occupations are very well described. Then there is information about which competencies are required for some occupation, and there is information about the jobs that are being done in some occupation. So when creating a qualification, it is possible to have a good overview and good description of getting sent a good description of occupations.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let me turn to the Netherlands again. We already heard visibility awareness is key. So you do a lot in terms of communication, and you already hinted to that. So again, please briefly, can you give us some more detail on what is happening there?
Of course. So we review our communication yearly, and now we are in the midst of developing the communication plan for 2026. And so each year we set a few key objectives that we have to do or that we are aiming for. So next year, for example, we'll be focusing on new materials. We have new animation videos made. There's an upcoming communication campaign on the NQF. issued by the Ministry of Education. So that includes videos, flyers. Every year we have our strategic meetings with umbrella organizations. So we try to connect to stakeholders, for example, the Associations for Higher Education, for VET, but also the Association for Private Training Providers and other social partners. And we always try to let others speak for us and let others be the ambassadors for the NOQF. So we have interviews scheduled with sector organizations, with end users, who will be interviewed on the impact the NOQF has on their lifelong learning, on their career path. And we have noticed that our numbers of classification are growing exponentially. So we try to really organize the classification procedure. At the beginning, it was kind of difficult to reach education providers to voluntarily apply for classification. And now we notice that there's a lot of, how can I mention? It's like social pressure or fear of missing out, maybe. It's a very popular word, of course. But we have a Dutch expression saying that they follow like sheep. If there's one sheep over the dam, the others will follow. And we really noticed that. So right now, our ambassadors and our enthusiasts are speaking about the NOQF, and that's really helping in our efforts to kind of increase the knowledge on NOQF.
Very good. So the success story as such brings then about the ambassadors. Yeah. Also to you, I would like to come back to this point about the labor market relevance. We learned that in the Netherlands, you have a very interesting initiative, the Competent NL, which has a specific occupational focus. So can you say one or two words about this so that we get a better impression?
Of course. So I think it's important to understand that the lifelong learning initiative in the Netherlands is very large and dynamic. So it is an interdepartmental policy area, and there's a lot of different, also more private institutions involved. But Competence NL is one of those lifelong learning initiatives. It could be described as a national translation of the ESCO, so a skills ontology. And it's supposed to link certifiable units in VET to labor market occupations. And we are always a big fan of ensuring complementarity of these initiatives and not competition. So the Competence Now is about describing skills, and the NOQF, of course, we work based on learning outcomes. And we have recently tried to put into words what that means, kind of to make it understandable for the end user and see that they do not, they're not like speaking against each other, but they can be worked with both at the same time. So my colleague Thijs Pels has recorded a testimonial, for example, that describes how the NOQF and the skills framework and the Competent Now relate, which I think it shows very well how it's important to align all these initiatives together and to make sure that they work as a catalyst for each other. Because we have a shared goal, of course, which is to increase the transparency of qualifications and mobility of learners and people.
Okay, thank you. And I think this alignment is a good keyword to turn again to Robert. Robert, at ELA and in EURES, you're working intensively to identify labor shortages, skill shortages in Europe. That means where there is a lack of workers in one country in a certain occupation, but there might be a surplus of the same workers in that occupation in another country. And EURES wants to facilitate this cross-border matching. So with what you have heard, do you think that, for example, the NQF tool that Aristos presented could help the EURES advisors to make this matching happening in practice?
For sure. As I mentioned, the EURES is 31 years old infrastructure network, and under EURES we have a so-called training framework contract. It means that we organize around 60-70 training per year for 500 EURES advisors. And one of the most visited training item is recognition of qualifications in Europe. And I think your tool and your method, what you do in Thessaloniki, is a key issue. And if you, I mean, this, I am not the manager of the ELA, of course, but I think that the two managers should meet somehow and check the curriculum of all training programs, and maybe your work or your project can be one part of this training program in the future. I think this is a key issue to foster mobility. The second, what I think now is a key issue for the US advisors at local level, is to cool down the expectations of employers, because we have shortages in Europe. Everyone wants welders, construction workers, nurses, hotel staff. So these are the key shortages, and this is very similar in Thessaloniki, in München, in Stockholm, in Norway. So everywhere in Europe, these are the key issues, and a movement process from a European state to the other European country can take 1 year, the whole process. And the companies want staff from yesterday, immediately, to work here from today. And we need to cool down this. It's not an easy process now in Europe.
Okay, thank you. Now, as we are approaching the end of the webinar, let me give a final word to Koen, getting back to the title of the webinar, the role of NQFs in the Union of Skills. So where do you see that potential?
Yeah, this is not a question to be answered quickly, but I think there are a few very clear hooks there that we can mention. So I think, first of all, through the Skills Portability Initiative, which is a key initiative as part of the Union of Skills. I already talked about it. The public consultation is now open. And this is really focused on removing barriers to free movement. But it's focusing on the labor market. It's not focusing on lifelong learning and skills development as such. It's specifically focusing on the labor market. And under the SPI, of course, one of the aims is also in, for example, in the context of regulated professions, to speed up recognition. Now, a few elements here. Interoperability of digital credentials will be really needed. So we see now that countries are starting to issue qualifications, credentials in a digital format. It is crucial for a European market that these digital credentials are issued in compatible formats, so that people can very easily share the digital format of their credential in other countries. But not only that, but also the receiver can easily read the digital credential and understand the digital credentials. And the big plus of digital credentials is, apart from the safety issue, but you can transmit much more rich information about your qualification, including the skills. So this is a matter, again, of visibility. Then I would like to quickly point also and support the point made by Frederica on the role of and the potential role of skills classifications like competence and L, because these skills classifications are important. They can bridge, for example, the world of the labor market and the world of qualifications. And the challenge is, of course, to make the bridge in relation to learning outcomes. But I think Competent NL is a good example of a classification that is trying to do that. All these national classifications should, of course, also be mapped to ESCO as the multilingual European classification. So there is a lot of potential there that we should further exploit. We are also looking into this in the context of the SPI. Then we see an increasing importance of NQFs as reference points for recognition. And this is, of course, in particular or especially becoming relevant in the context of the international dimension of the EQF. We have skill shortages in Europe. Robert just also referred to it. And we do have the EQF in place as a tool that can also be used not only to achieve transparency in Europe, but also to achieve better transparency between European qualifications and qualifications from non-European countries. And especially if in the context of labor migration, people are coming to do jobs in Europe, it's very important that their qualifications are properly understood, that their skills are properly understood, and that they are valued and recognized at the right level. Because one of the big problems we do have in Europe, statistically proven, is the high rate of overqualification of third country nationals that are working in the European Union compared to domestics, but also compared to European mobile citizens. Now, two last small points I would like to mention here. This work really relies also on building trust. Building trust is a continuous need that we should do, that we should never stop, and this relates really to the cooperation between the member states in the European context, or with the Commission, but also with Cedefop, also with the ETF, very important in the EQF context. And this is the work that we do in the EQF advisory group. And again, next year we will together agree on a work program for the next 2 years. And then, final point, it's important for all of this to maintain a good evidence base. And I think the webinar of today proves it. All the discussions are really benefiting from really a good evidence base, and we will continue working on this already in June. I think next year we will have the next biannual survey that we work upon together, Cedefop, ETF Commission, but also involving the EQF community, because I think together we have to bring this forward, and only together also, NQFs can flourish in the context of the Union of Skills.
Great. And from a Cedefop perspective, we are very happy to contribute and work with the Commission on that. So let me thank all our 4 panelists for sharing your very insightful experiences. I would like to echo Koen's last word. I think that was a very rich discussion. So great that we had you here. From my side, the only thing that left to be done is remind you again to please fill our evaluation survey. And with that also, I would like to ask Iraklis, do you have a 30-second wrap up of what we heard all this morning? Any key messages that you would like to give our audience on their way back?
I would like to thank everybody for being here with us today. We're really sorry that we have some technical issues. From my point of view, what I could say in 30 seconds is that it's clear that altogether we have progressed a lot. There are a lot of interesting initiatives around Europe regarding NQFs. We are following all of them, but at the same time, because there is a potential for NQFs, we need to keep on working all together. And from the moment I joined this procedure, I believe that cooperation among stakeholders, countries, it's the key feature that can help us progress and reach the goals that we will be jointly setting. Thanks a lot, Irene. The floor is back to you.
Great. Thanks for this quick wrap up. So again, also from my side, let me thank all our speakers, both our external contributors and our Cedefop colleagues, so Iraklis, Aristos, of course, and also all the helping hands at the background, Cedefop colleagues like Maria Elena, Maite, Vicky, and Cedefop communication team and IT colleagues to make this webinar happen. And also big thanks to you, our participants, for the very active exchange in the chat. Unfortunately, we did not have time to discuss it, but there were reactions from Cedefop colleagues and our other speakers written there. And rest assured, we will keep on working on the topic, so stay tuned. There is more to come next year and in the near future. So with that, let's close this webinar. Thanks everyone for participation. I would like to wish you on behalf of Cedefop a very happy festive season, a good start into 2026, and hope that we see all of you in the future Cedefop events in 26 and onwards. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Koen. Bye-bye.